Alright, let's just get going. So, this is one of our weekly happiness classes. When I say happiness classes, I'm talking about really practical things that affect us all. So, we're talking about how do you deal with anxiety from personal issues, relationships and things, all the way up to saving the environment. I think they're really practical and simple answers that have always been out there, but the public usually are not aware of some of these kind of basic psychological truths. In fact, we kind of tend to do the opposite, right? So we can't be happy if we don't have a good environment or good economic system, etc., etc. And religion is one of those common problems, I think, that we have got upside down, I think, and I'm going to try to talk about that. So basically, the main thing we're going to talk about first, the first half hour, is do we need religion? So let me get past this little... I'm trying to be a bit professional and maybe so people know what's happening, and voila, you got a few slides going on. Alright, so let's start with, is science a threat to religion? So a lot of people think religion is not based on any sort of facts at all, and I think there's a good reason why they have that idea, because most people don't know about Islam. They know only about Christianity. So I'm not against Christianity. In fact, in Islam you have to believe in Christianity, but at the same time we believe that it's a very old religion and God let it go out of date, as it were, and let people put in all sorts of weird ideas, like the universe is literally made in 6 days, right? So just to a bit of introduction to that, where did that even come from? So in the original Hebrew, they use a word called yom, which has been translated as day, but really means period. So if you go to the Quran, it also says 6 days, but it means periods, right? And just to give you an idea how scientific the Quran is, it says the universe was created in 6 periods and the earth was created in 2 of those periods. Now if you do the maths, if you do the age of the universe divided by 3, because 2 out of 6, you get the exact age of the earth. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's just the beginning, right? It also talks about the Big Bang. It says the whole universe, and I can give you quotes, references when you watch the video. I mean, when you get to the YouTube video and get to the description, I always put lots of information, okay? It talks about the universe was a closed up mass, and then everything was created from that. And nobody even dreamt of that idea. In fact, Einstein resisted that idea when he first came across it. He thought that is not possible. Right?
Yeah.
So basically Islam is incredibly scientific. That's just a drop in the ocean of what Islam teaches. So I don't see Islam or religion, true religion, okay, being at odds with science at all. In fact, without me going on too much, it was actually it was Islam that brought science to Europe. The whole idea, have you heard about the Enlightenment?
Yes.
Right? So that came about from Islam bringing the number system, maths, and all the science to Europe. Before that, according to a supposed Western history, they go, there was a dark ages. It wasn't a dark age, it's just that science hadn't reached Europe, but it was the bright ages all around Europe, yeah, for hundreds of years, okay, where science and maths are spreading. Anyway, that's my little bit of intro. Do you want to say something, or do you want to say? You have a go.
First, I say the Muslim community has given so much science to this world. It's staggering and brilliant, and all of us should be impressed with the contribution to our culture and civilization that has transpired with that amazing element. But there's that beautiful park where they have all the science, astronomical equipment. In the East, what was made by the Muslims like hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and they worked out the world was round and other amazing achievements. So it's undeniable. But I do think recently, though, it's not so forward and frontward in the Muslim world that science is such a great great visionary of all communities should be sharing in this experience, one-to-one experience with reality through science.
Are you saying that religion is not at the forefront of science at the moment?
I'm saying it's not as it used to be from the Muslim point of view.
I agree, by the way. So I agree. I think, unfortunately, Muslims are not following Islam, far from Islam, for a long time, and that's why they're so weak. And that's actually part of a prophecy by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that would happen, and then it's going to be reversed at some point. But that's another discussion. But I agree with you, basically. Sorry, what was your name again?
Charles. My name's Charles.
So Charles, any thoughts about that? Have you ever heard of that? What I was saying earlier on?
Yeah, algebra, mathematics. I'm an engineer, so I've delved into the historical sciences. But I'd say all cultures have had an enlightenment period. The Egyptians, the Greeks. There's been lots of it. The Chinese. So all cultures have had their time.
Sure.
And at the moment, it's Western science. So
Okay, so do you have the feeling that maybe religion is not scientific? Are you religious? What's your background?
I am not religious, non-religious. I'm an atheist. There's been lots of science in the atheist community. If, like you said about Islam and how Prophet Muhammad knew things, I want to know the source of that.
Oh, the great thing about that is that it's all in the Quran, and the great thing about the Quran is the only book that you can date back to the time of Prophet Muhammad. There's even a copy of the Quran up in Birmingham from the time of Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, that's all great, but still, what is the source of the Quran?
Well,
Let's keep it on science and religion.
sure, yeah, so, I mean, very briefly, it's just, we say it's a revelation, right, from God, right, okay, and it kind of makes sense it's a revelation from God because he knows stuff that can't be known by that person, Prophet Muhammad, because he didn't even read or write at the time. But anyway, but the other kind of element of why of what I want to bring up here is science a threat to religion. It's completely the opposite. It's science that supports religion. Let me just quickly explain. So one of the major misunderstandings about religion is that it's based on this idea of faith. Okay, I'm going to say it's based on logic. So does God exist? That's a fundamental question, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Essential question there.
Yeah, and I would say if at a very simple level, somehow we've got this bit mixed up. I don't know how we've got this thing mixed up. Okay, if we saw a bunch of robots walking around, super high-tech robot, we would think, where was that made? Where was that designed?
Yeah.
Okay, we are even our eyes are way beyond anything we can imagine. Even a fly, not all the scientists in the world can make. Right?
Yeah.
So you should automatically think there must be a God. That would be a reasonable thing. But somehow,
No, it's not.
good, go for it. So, given that
It's
idea,
not reasonable to me. So a fly or a tree is nature. So could it have come from nature? Natural?
sure, okay. So I could have said the same thing about a robot. It just came from nature. It just came. It doesn't make sense to
A
me.
robot isn't natural. It's man-made. A tree is not man-made. So
Sure.
the source of the robot is man.
Right. So basically, you have to trace it back to some sort of level of intelligence, right? So you're saying, the robot, even if you didn't see it being made, you know somewhere there must have been a factory, and you know that factory itself was based on some sort of intelligence.
No, you wouldn't.
That's kind of
If you didn't know about robots and a robot came, you wouldn't know what that was.
I know. I'm saying we know there's a thing called a robot.
Yeah.
Let's just say, and you just see a robot walking around. You wouldn't have to see the factory to know there was a factory.
So there's examples of robots,
Yeah.
and robots are made in factories by humans.
Yeah.
So you know already.
Sure. Okay. So go on. Your thoughts.
Well, I just want to just go back a little bit to the opening, just to just say what science is and how Christian science is, because that's where I come from as a location, of course. So Christianity loves science, and it supports science fundamentally. But there's a caveat to that. It's only the science of repression, destruction, weaponry. That's where Oxbridge comes in, and Harvard. Their funding comes from Christian fundamentalists. And inside this matrix of science is all built around genocide, something which I've been campaigning against for many, many years. So I refer to Oxford, but I mean the Western universities as a rule, the elites. So their physicists are allowed to look at the stars, yes, and observe and calculate and communicate. But that's under a massive caveat that then in their majority of their time, they build weaponry, gas, murderous chemicals, and that's how Oxbridge is funded fundamentally here in the UK and other Western universities. And this is so physicists have no choice in this relationship they have with science here in the West, by the way, because if they do not conform to the horror that they have to produce, they do not get funded. Therefore, they cannot describe the world and create wonderful technologies that communities can actually grow from. So they're in the business. Science in the West is in the business of destruction and murder, which is capitalism, and which is totally supported and backed up by Christianity, the elite of Christianity, not the Christian people. Again, I'm not trying to say Christians are bad. I'm just saying the leadership. When I say Christianity, I mean the only leadership.
Yeah, so I'll kind of, if you don't mind, I'll summarize in a way, or put it in my own way what you just said. So the leadership of Christianity has been hijacked from a sort of an immoral political and economic system. It's like it's no longer anything to do with Christianity, where Jesus said,
Yes.
"Give away all your wealth."
Thank you.
The only way the chance of a fat man getting into heaven is the same as the probability of a camel getting through an eye of a needle or something like that. Basically, you got to give away your wealth, and that's not modern day Christian leadership, which has nothing to do with Christianity. That's one thing. And the other thing I'd like to say about what you said is, without morality, which is religion, and that's another debate if you can be moral without religion, but religion is very specific about how to behave, and when that's let loose, when you don't care about morality, everything can be corrupted, even science. So even money, capitalism, all the good things that could be really useful for us are corrupted. Any thoughts? Come on, be angry.
Angry, passionate. Well, there's a lot to go on there.
Yeah.
Anything specific?
Yeah.
Morality?
Well, let's keep it in the topic.
Okay.
So morality related to science and religion, and
Yeah. So there is moral values within science, ethical, like your man just said there. There is destruction, weapons of evil. Yeah, that's all wrong for me. Definitely. Does it tie in with religion? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I am bringing up all sorts of topics, and it's kind of, but without, I'm eager to respond to that or explain why you cannot have morality really without religion. But just look at the world. We don't even talk to our neighbours and stuff, and for me, that's morality.
You're generalising there, though, no?
I am generalising. I could be more specific. I am trying to keep to the topic, though. Okay, I want to talk to the thing that you had a contention with, and genuinely loads of people do, which is that believing in God is a logical and scientific idea, right? So let me come. So one thing, what you were doing was separating man-made creations from nature.
Yeah.
You're saying nature has a sort of a magical power that doesn't need intelligence. It just evolves.
Yes.
Right? And there's another misunderstanding about that, which is people think, well, in Islam actually, in the second verse of the Quran, talks about God as the evolver. So we don't have a problem with evolution. In fact, evolution does not even disprove God. It just means things created in stages. But what's gone round is this myth that some guy called Darwin invented evolution. It's completely wrong. Even his contemporaries knew about evolution, right? It's not a new idea. In fact, the Quran said it 1500 years ago in the second verse, and Muslims knew about evolution for a very long time. So, but it just means it wasn't random. What I'm saying is, it doesn't make sense to believe things are created randomly. That's counter logic.
Can you just step back just a little bit? There you go. You got yourself in shot. Keep yourself in shot. I need to pick up on that point about that what you said about Darwin. Yes, evolution has always existed. This is clearly the case that we can agree on. But what Darwin did was to describe it and transform his idea into a provable state, which then anybody on the planet could read and understand. And that wasn't through Christianity. That was just his complete independent of his current state, which was Christian state, of course. Which is why he's so hated. Because as I was saying earlier about science and Christianity, Christianity is not interested in the understanding of the universe. It's only interested in the destruction and the leadership. Again, the leadership. And so why Darwin, even though he has described the world beautifully and with honesty and with the best of his efforts and with points that can, no matter where you are in history or on the planet at any time, that evidence can be reproduced and then back up the actual thesis that he has so clearly and beautifully described. So but communicating without a bias or bringing in other elements is where science comes in, really. So it's free of that hierarchical structures around it.
Okay, do you want any last words on that? I'll let you have the last word.
I would say science and religion are two separate entities. How things are in the world, knowledge, science. Religion's more of a faith-based.
Even though what I just said about science being brought to Europe by Islam and hundreds of years of that, and the amazing things I've just told you about how the Quran talks about the exact age of the universe and all of that. Despite that. Okay, cool. All right, that's great, because I think people make up their own minds, and I think I'm putting a few new things that you might not have heard, isn't it, right? So, I mean, about the age of the universe in the Quran. Just a little bit new to you.
I knew that.
You knew that?
I knew that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, fine. All right.
He's a regular here.
Good. All right, good. Okay, so can organised religion fix our broken society? All right?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Brilliant one.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things there. So when I talk about man-made ideas, I would say one of them is atheism, right? The prophet of atheism would be Dawkins, for example. It's an idea they came up with, right? And it's not particularly logical idea, coming back to the probability, just simple probabilities. Okay, for God, we know that it takes a designer, it takes intelligence to make things, and the mathematical probability of God not existing is pretty much impossible. Even, I just like to give the example of one thing that Dawkins accepts, by the way, okay, which is the mathematical probability of a single hemoglobin molecule being made. It's so complicated. We think blood, oh, it's just a bit of watery fluids going around our bodies. It's incredibly complex, right? And for just a single hemoglobin molecule to be made, if it was evolving once every nanosecond, since the beginning of the universe, there would not be enough time. That's how complex it is. And this is something Dawkins accepts. I could go to chlorophyll, I could go to loads of other things. That's just one example. And I think people misunderstand how complex we are, because we just work so nicely, right? If we kept breaking down, and we need to be fixed all the time, we would actually appreciate how complicated we are a bit more. But we kind of underestimate that. And strangely, in this age of science, somehow despite knowing all these facts, we don't know these facts, or the public don't know these facts. Okay, so there's this kind of thing like organized religion. So there's man-made ideas, right? There's that, as well as corrupted religion, which is again a man-made idea. And what I'm going to say is that we've done quite a few experiments. Our experiment is basically materialism and rejecting God. And where has it led us? In short, this is another fact that psychologists know throughout the board, even including atheist psychologists. They'll say religion makes us happier. It's good for us. If you can YouTube it, I'm glad you're smiling. I'm glad you're smiling, right? Because this is actually common knowledge to psychologists, and we could break that down why that is, right? I'm glad loads of people, because as soon as you go on YouTube and say psychology, benefits of religion, does it make you happier? This is commonly accepted, so we can YouTube it, right? Which is why I love to. So in short, we need it. We've done an experiment without religion, and society is breaking down. If it was for religion, society would be better. Any thoughts?
Well, again, I'm speaking from a Christian society, and we've in the West have thousands of years of Christianity, and throughout thousands of years of Christianity, we've just had poverty, genocide, crusades. Recession, pollution, repression, slavery, and can you think of anything else? But I'm sure there's
a lot of bad things.
That's enough, no?
I think there's many more things that crusades, poverty of education, poverty of social structures, denying community to grow stronger here in the West, and that's all because Christianity has fundamentally decided that any human being growing or any community growing is the threat to its existence. So
I agree with you. So what I said, there are two man-made ideas. One was atheism and one was corrupted religion. Okay, you can join if you want, but we've got a camera here. Okay, so for example, have you ever heard that Jesus said, if somebody slaps you on one side, you offer the other cheek, right? Now, how would the Crusades work if they went over to Arab countries to rob them and said, we're here for a war, and then the Arabs or the Muslims hit them on one cheek, they'd have to offer the other cheek. How would that war work if they listened to Jesus? That's not Christianity, is it?
I'm not Christian, I don't know.
No, but you get the idea. So, yeah.
you're correct.
Is it a metaphorical?
No. It's supposed to be literal. So that was the idea. Exactly. So what I'm saying is that's not religion. Religion is a really precise thing. It's a here are the rules. You should do it. Right now, if people ignore the rules, then you can't blame religion. For example, if I said, Charles, go that way to the coffee shop, and you walk that way, you can't blame me for getting lost. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Fair enough, right? So I'm saying religion does a lot of things, and psychologists break this down. One thing, it gives you community. It's desperately missing. Now, you would think that religious rules are really simple. Be nice to your neighbour. But guess what's happening in London? A completely packed, population. Somehow, we're lonely despite being surrounded by millions of people. How is that possible? It's amazing that without religion, despite it being really easy to communicate, we don't. Because, well, religion makes it really easy, and I could break that down why. But let me just go on. I feel like I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, the psychological reference paper that you're referring to is in itself a paradox, because we don't live in the religious society that you describe. Therefore, you referring to a paper that describes a religious society makes people come close together doesn't exist. I mean, it just does not exist. So That paper is.
It's not one paper. This is like lots of information put together.
It is not that many papers, and the paper itself, I believe, is being conducted in a certain bias, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the earlier talk, is that the universities in the West are Christian religious universities. So yes, they do produce independent and brilliant papers, but also they do produce nonsense. Like just recently in Oxbridge, they're talking about slavery, and he gave this gentleman, I can't remember his name, but just it's in today's paper, gave a scientific analysis of slavery from Oxbridge and how they've been involved in it. He's now been fired, ridiculed, abused, called this and that, because all he did was describe from the references. So unfortunately, psychology isn't biased, is biased, and science is biased. So we do have to be extremely careful. But as again, we've never, in the religion that you're describing, has never existed.
Okay, so what we're talking about, just to give you an idea, and I'll let Charles jump in, we're talking about statistics. We can see levels of depression going up, and as churches, I'm not Christian, I'm a Muslim, right? So even I support people following any religion properly because of benefits, and that's actually part of Islam. Okay, yeah. To support other religions is part of Islam. It's a very odd religion in that sense, right? Okay, and so as the congregation of churches are going down, depression is going up. It's just statistics, and we kind of know that. That's our experience. If you look at London, how many people go to church now? Next to nobody, right? And how much is depression going up? How much is loneliness going up? Is loneliness that statistic? Is that a fake statistic?
Of depression due to not going to church.
I mean, okay, you could say, is that the cause? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Right? So, well, let's just think about it logically. Why are people feeling lonely? Because we don't have a system to get people together on a regular basis. I'm trying to do public tea parties, right? And slowly trying to get people to be free to communicate. It's really hard. If there was a system where everybody knew, oh, you know what? We've got to get together this Sunday, this Friday. I went to a synagogue yesterday, right? Or day before yesterday, right? And I really valued how it brought communities and kids and everybody together. I value that, and I do think there is a link between getting together and being less lonely. An organised system. By the way, it's really weird that people hate organised religion. Like we like organised companies.
Yeah.
And why do we hate organised religion if it can organise people for something good? I think we shouldn't have a blanket hate of something that could be really good in organising good things.
Yeah, so organised religion, so what tribe you come from that you're going to align to, no? So am I going to go to a Jewish synagogue when I'm not Jewish? It's London is a big place, population's overspilled, the communities are fractured.
That's a shame, and that's the great thing about Islam. It says, I don't care which religion you're from, I'm on your side. I'm on side humanity.
Are you sure?
Okay, literally in the Quran, we're going to record this, right? It's recorded, so people can fact check this, right? Literally in the Quran, it says, if you die protecting a church or a synagogue, and then it puts last on the list of mosque, you are a martyr. So you can fact check this. I'll put it in the description of the video. So that's an amazing thing, right? So that's how you can unfracture a fractured or broken society. That's one thing. And just back to this idea of it being a theoretical idea that these religious societies don't exist. Even if you go to these Muslim countries where a lot of Islam has faded, they still have, and I don't like to say Muslim countries, because if I go to the Middle East like Jordan, right, there's actually different religions, Christianity, Islam, and that's the source of these religions, like Jesus in the Middle East, right, he's a Middle Eastern, you could call it, not an Arab, but anyway, but the point is, they know the basis of religion is that we're all brothers and sisters, we're all children of God. Right, and they don't have that separation. And when I go out at midnight in a park, there's grandmothers, there's there's little children, and they're all playing with each other because they have that fundamental understanding of that we're all children of God. Over here, and this is what Nietzsche, I can't remember how to pronounce his name, he said, even though he was an atheist, he predicted the death of God. Okay, wait, because he wrote a book called, I think, Death of God or something.
He wrote a story,
Yeah.
and he referenced in that story the concept of the death of God. But was he really referring to the death of God as in what most people use his reference from? No, I don't think so. So I think because people just take that little sliver out of the actual story rather than the rest of the story, which is a dangerous thing to do.
Sure.
So it is important to read. Yes, he did say that, but you've got to read the whole story to get the whole picture. Because Nietzsche wasn't just saying that.
Sure, but he was saying basically the idea that we need to believe in God was illogical and we could do away with it. Would you agree with that?
No, I would not. But I just want to get back to the some points you brought up. I think religion, helping a broken society. I think if more religious people were like you, then I would agree with that statement to be true. But I think this park demonstrates what people think religion is, and what people think religion is a combative and not and saying whose God is better and who's superior and how I can now justify my murderous act of your family. So unfortunately, religion tends to, and you definitely don't fall into that category, but unfortunately, it has been hijacked as a tool to not communicate and transmit your love for God, but instead just to fuel and explode your hatred on the world.
I can't say that in a better way. That's excellent. Absolutely combative. My God's better than yours. Let's fight about that. Where's the humanitarian side of things?
And the funny thing is, we were talking about this in a way. We were saying, if we were being nasty to each other right now, rather than being understanding of each other, we would get loads more views. So when you say that that's what this place is about, unfortunately, to get the views, so it's going to be the 1% who are really hateful of each other, they get all the attention. So I don't think it's representative of reality. It's just unfortunate that that's how social media works. We are tribal, and we like to hate one group against the other, unfortunately, and we've got to work on that.
I do think Speaker's Corner does represent the larger world relationship with religion. I think this is a great example of how countries work, how communities work. It's a microcosm that transmits to a bigger thing. You see, we talked about broken society in our great talk we had last week, which you should go and watch, by the way. And we agreed on how schools should function. That's how we mend a broken society. We agree on how schools function, what role government should have, which we didn't talk about too much, but we can bring that in hopefully another day. But that's how a society is unbroken, by the conversation that we had last week. That was the great moment of two different people, two different ideas, two different communities deciding, communicating, and we literally have become, you and me became architects in that moment, and we had already started building how a community, but literally. So last week's video was very good. So how to broken society. We just can't let poverty be used as a weapon anymore.
Well, that's going to be the next topic in a second. But I want you to have the last word, because I was just saying something, but I'm not sure if you heard what I said, which is, I don't think religion is about hating and my God is better than your God. It's just that's what you get to hear, because that's what gets popular on YouTube. This talk is not going to be that popular as the ones where somebody's hating on somebody else.
It's
They're going to get 1 million views for hating on somebody, and we're going to get like 10 views, or hopefully more, right, for being nice and talking about what religion actually
I
teaches.
totally understand. It's because it's entertainment. Seeing people fight raises your adrenaline. What's going to happen? You're going to get more views.
But do you get that that's not representing religion? It's just representing what gets popular.
I totally understand. It's been bastardized. So what can we do? What can we do as humanitarians? Because we're nice. Atheists, you don't see atheists in the park fighting each other.
Yeah, you kind of do. You get a bit of every, but you don't.
I've never seen atheists fighting each other.
We're regulars in this park. But our media, people like you and me, you said it's social media, but it refers to the media like the BBC as well. They do what comes the most. They are representative of this park. They don't do what we do now. What they do is Daily Mail, the Sun,
sensationalising things, yeah.
Rupert Murdoch. They do what happens here in this park, which is they focus on the worst of humanity, and they get the views from that. So it's not just social media; it is the media. Full stop. The media won't do this, what we're doing, because it means unity. Unity. What a great word! But you don't get the views, but yeah, sorry.
But I want to just say, right, just to finish that last one off, right, it's just that we have to take responsibility. Like, I'm telling you right now, that's not religion, but I want you to go, oh, okay, I will check up the references if I can give you the references, and you go, oh, okay, religion isn't that, I've just been told the wrong stuff. And if we take responsibility and say, hang on a minute, that is not religion, then we move forward.
It's too far gone.
We can't give up.
It's too far gone. You've had 1400 years to sort this out. Christianity's had thousands of years, still haven't sorted it out, still fighting.
Okay, I would say atheism is messing up big time as well. If you think about who's killed the most people, okay, it would be atheism. Just statistically, Chairman Mao, most people ever killed genocide, but he was an atheist.
I don't think we should be getting into I don't think we should be descending into who's better or not. I don't think that's what he meant by it. Maybe he didn't mean to phrase it like that. Maybe because it's not. We don't own our religions. Our religions are owned by the rich, and they don't listen to people like you or me. It doesn't matter if you're atheist, Muslim, Jewish, Christian. If you bring the message that you bring and the humanity that you bring, it's the humanity that is front and center. And you enclose that in the Muslim religion. I enclose that in just the word humanity. I need no more than humanity to drive my inner self to function as and communicate as a human being and design a world accordingly. So I think your statement was slightly wrong. I'm not sure if you actually meant it that way, but you can confirm.
Yeah, I think religion is divisive. I don't think atheism is divisive. Well, what I've seen so far, all atheists don't agree on the same thing. There is no book of atheism, but I think the discourse seems to be a bit more, analytical.
Okay, cool. I'm just going to move on to the next thing. I like to have other people have the last word, but I think I did answer that, but how religion creates brotherhood. But anyway, should food be nationalised? So this is Dust's question, and I kind of do a bit of research, and I end up learning a lot of things. So, interestingly, the Quran says that a fundamental right of all human beings in a country is food, shelter, drink, and something else. I can't remember. 4 things, right? So your basic needs.
Yeah.
Right? That's great. And that will solve all problems. But it's not anti-capitalism. It's just like, that's a fundamental need. And Dust got me thinking about this because he made me realise that if food is not a fundamental right, we can easily be controlled and oppressed by people through our salaries. So pay people nothing, and then they can't afford food, and then your employers get to control you. They can get you to do anything they want because you can't afford food. So what are your thoughts about that?
and desperation, and leads to horror. And we've got an incident happening. So food and these other basic human rights should be. It's amazing to hear that this is in the Quran, and it kind of showing up Christianity here quite dramatically. And so we need to get some Christians to talk about this, I believe, because from my own point of view, Christianity definitely is about, especially the way Bob the Troy communicates, it's all about me, and everybody else can go and F themselves, and which has been capitalism and the...
Sorry.
It's hard to get this tiny camera. Yeah, go on.
I think, Jesus actually made food for free and gave it out for free, which is what a lot of the Christians seem to forget as well. So maybe there are references actually in Christianity, but certainly a message that the Christians here absolutely ignore and have no interest in, which is very disappointing, because some of the Christians here, this is very disappointing. But I fundamentally believe that if you don't create a community where the basic needs are met, which is a responsible thing to do as an adult and a leader, therefore you're deliberately creating a community to produce violence, war, and not let human beings like you and me develop and grow and create unity rather than what... that's what happened in Germany. It was made in horrific poverty, and from that created an absolute justification for a Catholic war in World War II. And it's happened in America, where the desperation of, and it's another Catholic Christian entity, create absolute desperation, and now they're murdering children in schools. Desperation will create horror, and if our basic needs are not respected and met, horror will always happen.
Have you got any thoughts about that? Like the idea, I don't know, we've got a couple of ideas there, but did you ever know that the Quran said as a fundamental right, you should have food, a roof over your head, and things like that?
Yeah, it's amazing, but once again, I think that's a human concept. We can come up with that idea. It's not so grandiose. We can come up with that idea.
Okay, cool. And actually, the great thing about religion, it doesn't give you ideas that make no sense. They're pretty sensible ideas, so it's easy for human beings to accept. It's just that we do have an NHS, as Dust brought to me, and I didn't think about this. When Dust told me at first, this was 1 or 2 weeks ago, that food should be nationalised, I thought, that's a bit of a crazy idea. So you say it's simple, but I didn't think it was until 2 weeks ago, until I thought about it a little bit.
We need total reform the political system. We need to start again, but it's going to be hard. How do you do that?
Cool. So I think on top of that, there's ideas. Anybody can say, like you say, you can have ideas. You should be nice to everybody, whatever. But you can Islam also creates systems to enforce those ideas. So Islam is a very clever tax system. Okay, what it does, it taxes unused wealth. So you'll notice that the poor live on their incomes, while the rich live on their profits, because they don't need the income, they got surplus, right? So if you tax the surplus money that's not being used, okay, that taxes the right people, okay, and that's just the beginning of it. And then basically you get the money that is needed to support these systems of providing for the poor.
So, sorry, are you saying that's in the Quran?
Okay, it's one of the 5. Have you ever heard of the 5 pillars of of Islam? Number 5 is something called zakat. Right. Zakat literally is what I just described to you.
So, if that's true, which I absolutely, obviously, I believe it is. I'm saying true in the universal sense.
Sure.
Sorry,
yeah, you got a tiny camera there. Sorry, but you can join in though. You can join in.
Please join in, but don't hide the camera, if you don't mind. If that's true, then how does Saudi Arabia? How does that function? Because you're saying with that statement that Saudi Arabia is not a Muslim country, and a lot of other Muslim countries are actually, in fact, not Muslim countries. In fact, they are another entity that's using the Muslim faith as a gown to disguise and disguise pretty horrific behaviour, like it happens in the West as well. So I mean, how does Saudi Arabia?
I think most people, a lot of Muslims would know the answer to that. So if you look at the Saudi kings, they drink alcohol, they gamble, all fundamental things that you're not allowed to do, and they do them. They're bombing other Muslim countries with millions and billions of pounds. So it's kind of really fundamental things that most Muslims know that they're not being Islamic. In fact, most, apparently at the moment, Christians can't go to Mecca. Did you know that?
No.
Right? So they say no non-Muslims are even allowed to get into Mecca. But the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said Christians can pray, or anybody can pray inside a mosque.
So what's happening now then?
So exactly.
After you said all this about Islam, it's been contradiction everything you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
So Islam is not the way forward.
No, what happens is, like I said about if religion gives one instruction, then you do literally the opposite. You can't really blame the religion. So if there was a coffee shop behind you, and I said coffee shop that way, you go the other way.
Islam, is it the way?
It's the fastest growing religion, so somebody's learning something, but maybe, unfortunately, some of the leadership are doing the exact opposite things. I can't stop them.
It's the fastest growing non-belief system.
I think it's a religious system. It's a belief system.
There's no book of atheism, is there? What doctrines do we go to?
We're going off subject.
Yeah.
I don't mind going off subject. Yeah. All I'm doing is saying we're going off subject.
That's fair enough. Thank you.
Would you like to make a view about But if you want to go off subject, I don't mind. Don't let me be the.
No, just
be in the chat.
No, I think that's a good point.
I have to go.
Do you want to quickly just say something about nationalisation of food?
Ooh, this one's new to me. Off the top of my head, I think it would be a good thing. Feed the poor. Too many rich people. Let's get back down to community.
It's very interesting that you just said it was new to you, but a second ago you just said that this religious idea in the Quran was obvious.
Sorry, say that.
You said a minute ago, when I said this is in the Quran, okay, you said that's obvious.
No.
Oh, okay, maybe I misunderstood.
No. But it'd be a good thing to feed everyone, no?
Yeah.
I don't want to see starving children or anyone. Yeah, help each other out, be charitable. That's the way forward.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking time out for this small YouTube channel. Appreciate it. Thank you, Charles.
So, I think mending a broken society would be one of the building blocks of mending a broken society would be giving people food to live and function. Do you disagree?
Disagree. Even one tiny comment.
No, you don't need to be on
I can get your sound in. Oh, okay, fine. But he was laughing, or he was bemused, I would say, from his facial expression. Okay, which if you disagree, I'm very interested in. In the comments, by the way, disagree, and I'll respond to you because I respond to comments. Hey,
what do you think of the question?
Yes.
Now, he's a Catholic, a true-blooded Catholic guy, the way we got here, and he thinks that nationalisation of food, but it's not a socialist idea, it's just a common sense.
Not everything that is nationalised has to be socialist.
Wow, but you heard it there, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, obviously caviar shouldn't be national. Caviar and salmon.
That's the point I brought up last week.
We're taking it a bit too far, but a basic meal should be guaranteed and nationalised,
He's one of the great thinkers in this park, and sadly, some people that are shy don't get heard, and unfortunately he's a great representative of the Catholic community. His views are not the mainstream, and he's look, he disagreed with that. Be interesting to get another Catholic to see that, but without elements like this, because you don't need money in this society for this sort of in transaction. You shouldn't have money just to be a human being. So education would therefore be free, and nationalised. Well, which is what we had in the UK, and in that period during the UK, what we had was the greatest period of social movement in the history of possibly Europe. Now, I'm sure you can add a comment that another country, maybe France, would be a contender for that. But certainly the greatest period in England of social mobility, where somebody from any background could go to a university and not feel left out, inferior, which is absolutely what happens now. And so that this transaction of money should not be allowed at that sort of level. There should be other levels of it.
I might just, I'm not sure if I'm going to disagree with you here, but there's this thing about, I'm really worried about anything being nationalised. It sounds like I just agreed that it should be nationalised, but I think there's another mechanism. So I believe that everybody has a right to food, basic fundamentals, food, whatever, right? But I worry about the government having a monopoly on that control. I think they should source it out to competitors, because my only problem with nationalised things is that they get too relaxed and they do it badly. I would like to have like 3-4 companies, including a governmental company, right, responsible for dishing out the food effectively, yeah, and then whichever one does it best. So you have some sort of competitive system. Maybe that's a small detail. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
My thoughts about that is completely no. That couldn't function or work. I've worked in the private public sector, and I've worked in it from the government side. And literally, the taxpayers' money are being paid to individuals to constantly have to monitor the entities that you've described for competition, because the only way that all that happens in the matrix that you've just described is who can put in the cheapest tender for government, for the taxpayers to be paying for. And that means cutting wages. That means doing job X, but not really doing it. Yeah, we're going to do that for X amount, but in their head they know there's no way we can do that, but we cannot get this bid in if we do that. And as soon as we get the bid in, they can't do it because there's not the money anymore that exists. And then what you have to do is the taxpayer has to employ individuals to be the police officer of the organise these different groups, to constantly have to literally physically walk out. Did they do the job that we paid them to do? Tick yes. Oh no, look, they haven't done this. Time completely wasted. Money completely wasted. I think your idea of government, you're absolutely right not to trust. Your idea of government and where you come from, I completely 100% agree that they should never be responsible for anything at all. But I'm talking, I would rework government heavily. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. But so yes, from your point of view, you're absolutely right. No government should be trusted with anything. That is I'm describe that government as a capitalist government, which is religious, Christian-led, and I'm describing the government which you would actually, I think, might actually agree with, may not. But it's where communities actually form the governments. Those communities that you're building, that you interact with, they become the politicians. They become the leaders. Not having just one sector from Oxbridge or private school kid automatically being... Because I spoke to Ed Miliband the other week, and he's an Oxbridge kid, and he thinks that wealth should only be the people in charge. And I stood up in front of him in a public meeting and said, everything you've done and do is lies. Because he was proposing grassroots, he was proposing big ideas, and literally he and his little Oxbridge mates, Tony Blair, Mandelson, Keir Starmer, literally destroyed, dismantled and abused those very sentiments. He gave a talk on LSE, the London School of Economics. And so, unfortunately, the government, yes, you're correct. From your point of view, Ed Miliband, people like that, that's your idea of government, and they will always let you down. But maybe we should have another talk about this, what a government is. I don't know if maybe as I've described.
I think fundamentally, the fundamental idea is we agree that there should be food enough for everybody, all the basic means of, not just food, but shelter and so many other things. They should be basic human rights. And how we do that, they're kind of relatively the details, and maybe I agree, and I haven't got a specific point of view, but I was just saying I worry about how rubbish government is at the moment, but I
completely agree with that.
So we agree, and I think maybe it's just right, if you have a rubbish government and it's corrupted, maybe you don't have the best example.
So my proposal to you now is to meet people in these companies that monitor these companies, and just have a interview with them. And the work they have to do to clean up the mess, it's horrific. So I'd implore you to do some research, because I literally worked in that field and I saw it firsthand, and it is incredibly sad experience. Having to be paid using taxpayer money just to clean up someone else's mess, it's one of the most depressing jobs in the world, because it's not good use of taxpayers' money. But we should have a conversation about government, I think, next time.
Sure, and I feel like I'm learning as well, because I'm quite pro-capitalist in many ways, but I like to be able to adapt my points of view if somebody's got a different experience of how it really works. So, okay, fair enough. So, next topic, and I do believe in talking about things that are really personal, because if we don't have happy individuals, we're in big trouble. Okay, my idea of how you can have a functioning world starts from having a happy human being. Then it starts with a happy family, then societies. There are these concentric circles. If we don't start from the fundamental building blocks, we can't get to a happier society. Okay, and so right now, this is another thing that I think should be nationalised, right? Which is the right to get into a happy relationship, which sounds really weird, because we've adopted this idea that it's actually a philosophy that we've subconsciously taken on, which is kind of comes under the broad idea of romantic love. And romantic love, if you talk to psychologists, they kind of go, it's a bit of a weird idea if you break it down. It's an idea that somehow our emotions are in tune, so perfectly in tune with the universe, that when we fall in love, that is the right person, okay? And we have a single soulmate, even despite the fact that people get into relationships, fall out of them, and then get into the perfect soulmate and fall out of it. I don't know how they kind of have the soulmate hundreds of times, but anyway, so we've got lots of information that contradicts this idea of this perfect system of romantic love which works with just our feelings. What do I propose instead? It might sound boring, but I think it sounds, for me, when I break it down, is really sensible. If I was going to buy a really expensive car or a really expensive house, I would like to think it through, rather than buy it while I'm drunk. Now you might be wondering, what's that got to do with dating? Well, if you think about it, that's how a lot of people get into relationships. That's why I've been told. I was talking to a lady yesterday in my public tea party, and she was saying, for some reason, and you could tell me better, because you're kind of, I'm married through what we might describe as an arranged marriage, right? So I don't use apps and Tinder and stuff like that. I don't know how you get to know people, but she said, she's a French lady, and she said in Britain, English people don't see, or British men don't seem to be able to get a conversation done without being drunk. I don't know why, to what extent that's true, but that's kind of what I felt in Christmas parties. People are so not relaxed, they can't communicate. But I mean, that's just one idea, but I want to kind of get my basic idea out there, which is if you get now that we've let the apps do the work, what's happening statistically is that many people who describe themselves as incels, have you ever heard of that term?
Yeah.
Right? Many people are, if you're describing it in a sort of mechanical way, left out of the sexual marketplace. This is really dangerous. This is no joke. Okay, they highly represent the people who get involved in mass shootings, school shootings, and terrible, terrible things. This is no joke. So we need to be what's the word? A responsible society which creates possibilities for not the extroverts but the introverts to get into relationships. Not everybody has to be a six-pack person who gets all the dates on Tinder, because that's what's happening at the moment. It's the 0.1% getting all the attention, and all the people who don't want to do that are academics. It's good to be academic, right? Those people are not getting attention. So I've done a bit of talking. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think firstly, I would sex is nationalising sex is a very intriguing concept. I like to think about that. But sex fundamentally should be a human right, and I mean that as as long as it's with consenting adults, you should be allowed to meet your needs as an adult, and I think that is an absolute basic human right. And I believe, but this has to be again consenting adults, and I think that it has to also be done where sex education is communicated. I just don't mean by sex education just the actual physical act, which obviously is important, but actually about relationships with other human beings, what no means, what our responsibilities are. Just a proper conversation with a young adult at school, obviously age dependent, and you wouldn't just go full with a young child, but adult grown conversations with in a classroom with adults there having a frank but yet enlightened discussion about how our bodies are, how our sexuality are, how we should be proud of it. Being proud of what we are is extremely important. And I was going to say something else, yes. So it should be a basic human right, and so.
I'm going to chip into what you just said. You say that it's true. I agree. We should be proud of our bodies, and body image is a massive issue nowadays. Why is body image a massive issue? Because we are now, if you leave apps in charge of developing our relationships, what happens is we demote society to its basic form, which is you are your immediate facial body features, right? So you have to sell yourself based on the very basic thing, and who you are as a person, who you are as a human being, no longer counts, because Tinder and things like that. By the way, we might discount Tinder and think it's not a big deal. It's the number one app for dating at the moment. Okay, and how does Tinder work? It's like you spend 5 seconds or less on a person deciding if you want to be in that relationship. Flick right, left. That's the end of it. You don't care about who they are as a person. And lots of lovely people, all these incels, as it were, who they might describe, they don't win. They're just left out.
So, hang on, they wouldn't have an incel on Tinder. Those two would never be a marriage made, because they are literally.
So we agree then.
So Tinder, just to give a slightly different view of it, it's not there to function as a long-term relationship. It's there just to meet by consenting adults who have agreed upon a basic standard that they would need as humans, and to form as that function. But I've actually known people who use Tinder. See where I am at all the time. I'm Twitter man. and have actually found true love through it. So where love comes from is unknown, and it can magically appear in all sorts of oddities and unusual situations that we can find ourselves in life. But yes, generally it's used as a function of meeting a function, and as long as it's with consenting adults, I do not have a problem. But I think it's important to have education at school about things like Tinder, and not to you can actually have what your rights are as a human being, and when you can say no. Again, no being the most fundamental, important word in that in engagement, and yes being the just carry on and the event or events happening. So Tinder is, yes, it is what you've described, but everyone on Tinder who's on Tinder does get their moment, shall we say. It's just some people get more choice of those moments.
I'm just talking statistically. They don't. Most people don't. That's what I'm saying. Most people just. When you say most, it's a mathematical word. Do you know what I mean? Probabilities.
What you said was one person can get a huge amount of hits or likes, whatever, swipes. Yes, that's true, and statistically true. But it's just like when you would go to a disco. There's always one girl or one bloke that's going to get all the attention, and then through the night, everyone, their reality is dawns upon them of what their role is. Life shouldn't be built on around the physical, but perfection. But it is, and evolution has always done that as part of the course of how evolution works. I mean, this is what you see in discos or on Tinder. I mean, it happens in the animal kingdom. I mean, it's who can do the. I mean, what bird can do the most prettiest dance? The girl's going, oh yeah, liking that pretty dance over there. You're there. So I mean, even in the animal kingdom, there is a hierarchy of a sexual partner and the choice of sexual partner. Do I think it? But personally, I think enlightenment and relationships and bonding and love are the greatest that can be a human being can experience. That's only my experience.
So I'm just saying, I agree. There's always a biological hierarchy. Some people can get more interest, right? But I'm saying, just saying that and letting it be, that's a really dangerous thing, because a lot of people are left out of the sexual marketplace, and people need to be paired up. I think it's as part of a caring society. So let me just describe what. So what is an arranged marriage? Because
some people,
yeah. An arranged marriage, just so people, I like to describe it better as an assisted marriage, because you definitely don't get forced in these things, okay, is where you have like caring human beings, matchmakers, who literally look at you as an individual and go, oh, that's a quiet guy, he's very academic, let's find somebody who might somehow fit, and you do have a discussion. Now, why is that so good? Because at the moment, it's swipe right, swipe left, get drunk, whatever. It's not exactly something that would form long-term relationships. So we know relationships are breaking down really quickly. And you said, for example, Tinder isn't a place for long-term relationships. Unfortunately, you're right. And unfortunately, more and more people are going for short-term relationships, which are not going to be healthy for society and for individual psychology. If you think that you can have a one-night stand and it won't affect you, you don't understand psychology. You are tossing yourself, you're treating yourself as a disposable.
Again, this is what I was referring to earlier. We need in our schools good conversations, good descriptions, and what it means to be human, and what it means to be with another human, and our responsibilities and our expectations, and what is it that you want from a relationship is so important, and that needs to be described. Personally, I think each human being, if you choose, to write a little constitution, your own little constitution about you personally, what is it you want? So you're having a conversation with yourself firstly. If you don't have that, how on earth can you communicate to the world what you want? So this education doesn't mean just here's some information. Education should be, in my school that I would design, about enlightenment of an individual, not against the current trends, but just so that at least as a human being you describe yourself, and then you can transform into an adult and reassess when needed and when realities contradict, as long as they're not illegal.
So what you're describing, as you often do, Dust, is an Islamic system. And I do say, Dust, consider becoming a Muslim because you keep agreeing with it. Just an idea.
I'm just happy to be a man.
Yeah, well, you're a good man. And so let me just explain why you just said an Islamic system. So when you talk about education, there's a constant education of what you should be like to other people and also how you should marry. So in Islam, what you hear again and again does affect you. And in Islam, you hear this message again and again. When you want to get married, don't just go by people's looks or how much money they have, but how good they are. And if you keep hearing that, that's going to affect you. Okay? And why? Literally, so in Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that if you don't go by their goodness, you're going to lose. And why are you going to lose? Because if you go to a narcissistic, good-looking person, you're not going to have a good time in that relationship. It's not going to last. You're going to be treated like rubbish, okay? And you're going to, like many people, feel, you know what, I can't trust human beings. And they go, you know what, I like animals better than human beings. A lot of people are going down that route. You probably heard that, right?
I've literally no idea what you're saying.
What? Okay. Okay, wait a second.
Can you expand on that?
Okay, how many times, I don't know, I hear this all, no, oh sorry, I think I should explain that actually.
Yeah.
So, not sex with animals. Let me explain. What I mean is, a lot of people, because of their bad experiences with human beings, about the lack of trust and how they fall in our relationships, they kind of give up. And they go, you know what, my best friend is a dog from now on. Because you get, like, what's the word? You get love for unrequited love.
Need to explain that.
That needed to be explained.
Yeah.
I think I can imagine somebody editing that video. Anyway.
Classic.
Yeah. Anyway, we've done more than an hour. I really appreciate your time. It was fantastic, and hopefully you guys, you might have found that useful. Please comment, disagree with me, agree with me, but do press the like button maybe if you did think it was useful. Any last words?
It's been a wonderful conversation. I think again we've contributed to the wonder of Speaker's Corner and the glory that it is. Tomorrow, by the way, is an anniversary here, so I don't know if you can get yourself here tomorrow. If you can, then I think you'll find that would be quite a rewarding moment, and that includes you too out there. Come here tomorrow and celebrate.
How many years?
Pardon? 150, allegedly. Don't quote me on that. So yeah, but our conversation has been enlightening. It's great to hear that again the Muslim, a religious person and a non-religious person in that sense are so be able to have a debate and talk and show the world the brilliance of community and unity. And it doesn't mean having to transform or it means that we can celebrate our differences as well as unite and show our being united.
Thank you very much for that summary. Over and out.
Thank you. Stay wise and subscribe.